We're coming to you from a very special place today. We are actually inside the grounds of the Pollsmoor Correctional Facility, where behind me you'll see the Albertina Sisulu baby and mother unit. Now, this is a house setup where currently 7 mothers and their babies are housed. Now, how it works is that for the first 2 years of the baby's life, from their birth, if they are born when the mother is incarcerated or trial awaiting, she is allowed to keep the baby with her in person in this facility behind me for the first 2 years of their life. And afterwards, the sad thing happens that they will hand over the child to whomever the mother nominates, or they go into the care of the Department of Social Development. It's a very homely setup here, it's very friendly vibe, but people are still incarcerated or trial awaiting, as I said. But before this unit was established, babies were actually kept with their mothers for 5 years, but inside their prison cells. But we have a very special guest with us today, who is one of those babies who for the first 5 years of his life spent his time with his mother in her cell here at Pollsmoor Correctional Facility, not in this beautiful, lovely housing unit, but actually inside a cell. And his name is Lubelo Scott. Lubelo, thank you so very much for your time.
Really appreciate it.
You are a lawyer.
Yes, ma'am.
You graduated this year, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
But you started your life out here at Pollsmoor. What, if anything, can you remember of that time?
I don't particularly remember much, but I remember banging the gates in the prison cells, shouting, Sersan, Sersan, Makop Diek. I'm not in gevangenis, I'm not a prisoner, So that's particularly what I remember. I also remember being picked up at the prison hall to go to creche by the lady that I saw today for the first time after I don't know how many years. So those are particularly the memories that I have, and obviously talking to my mother also, when are we going home? Because there were instances where kids would go home, people would leave prison, but we were not going home. So I would always continuously ask my mother, when do we actually go home? And there was a time that we were being moved to another prison facility, and she actually told me that we're going home. When we got there, I was like, but this is the same environment, So those are the glimpses and a little bit of memories that I have of prison, yes.
At the age of 5, you actually went to family in Gugulethu. And from there, you actually thrived. You have a brilliant mind. You did well at school. And you also, you were a keen rugby player, not so?
Yes, ma'am. So I was released. I arrived in prison at the age of 5 months, and I left at the age of 5. So that means I spent 4.5 years of my infant life in prison. I was then moved to Kukulethu, where I lived with my aunt, my cousins, and my brother, who was then later brutally shot in Kukulethu. But with that being said, I remained resolute, I remained determined, I remained in the spirit and the spirit and principle of never giving up. So I ended up going to Bishops, and I ended up coming to UWC. I played for Western Province. I did a lot of things. So rugby was my go-to. That was where I let off a lot of my stress, because I had that athletic ability. I had sports, athletics, I had rugby to free my mind as a way to get away from the atrocities of life. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. And then you went on to study on the insistence of your mother.
Yes. I ended up studying at UWC. One thing I did not mention actually earlier on was that I actually lived and raised with my mother, because my mother then came out of prison and pursued her LLB and LLM degrees at UWC, where I actually lived and raised with my mother. So for me, coming back was a mere way of applying back to the community that raised me at the age of 8 until I was, I don't know how old, I can't really remember. But it was an effort to plow back to the community with the rugby abilities that I had. And in that, we ended up winning the Varsity Shield tournament in 2018, where some people say I was very instrumental in that team. And I've played for UWC ever since, and stopped playing about 6 months ago.